everyone, I'm Laura Bowen, Executive Director for USTA Florida. It's March, and that means it's Women's History Month. And this March, we're spotlighting some of our outstanding women in Florida tennis. Today, I'm especially excited to be joined by Stacey Allaster, the Chief Executive of Professional Tennis at USTA, the former CEO of the WTA Tour. She was the first woman tournament director at the US Open this past year. Thank you for joining me, Stacey.
Thrilled to be here, be back on the USTA National Campus on a day that we have activity for USTA Florida, and to be with you, another great female leader in our industry. So thanks for asking me to join me.
It's been my pleasure. So I'm going to just dive into some
All
of
right,
my
let's
questions
go.
we have. What are some of the notable obstacles that you've encountered and overcame early in your career?
I started teaching tennis. I became a certified teaching pro at Tennis Canada when I was 16 years old. So we start the clock then to now, it's 40 years. It's crazy. And in 1987, after college, I started working at the provincial level, which is like the sectional level. And, once I started at the Ontario Tennis Association, I knew immediately I wanted to work for Tennis Canada. And I knocked on that door 3 times and I was turned down 3 times.
Wow.
So when I think back and through the journey, I think probably the biggest obstacles in the early days of the career were my age with a combination of my gender. And I think I was gifted with the DNA of Scottish and Irish grandmothers with the perseverance and that relentless mindset to not give up. I'm sure glad I didn't, because wouldn't be sitting here today had I not persisted at Tennis Canada and gone through that journey of the rejection.
Well, we're happy that you persisted.
Well, thank you.
That's a common story, when we hear about women in sports in particular, and I think baseball just has their now first female GM.
with Kim.
And she was turned down
30
several
years.
times.
Kim and I have been Wise Women of the Year. That's Women in Sport and Entertainment, a networking organization for women run by Kathy Francis. And Kim, I just said to her, "How are you doing it?" Like it's year in, year out. She said that she would apply for GM roles and get turned down. And fantastic for her that she has broken that glass ceiling, and she will be the first, but she will not be the last.
For women in tennis, and especially on the business side of tennis, what are some of the challenges that we have left to overcome? And where are there more opportunities for women to shine, and are we looking in the right places for recruitment?
I do think opportunities for women to shine at all levels comes in the area of sales. And that's always an uncomfortable thing I tell young men and young women: you need sales. And that was somewhat what Elliot Kerr of IMG Canada said to me when I was about 21 years old. There's a dime a dozen that can do event operations, that can do marketing. There are very few people who know how to make revenue for their companies. And it differentiates yourself. But number 2, your entire career, you're going to be selling. You're going to be selling yourself, your ideas, your team, persuasion, and to be able to run businesses knowing what it's like on the front line to sell a program, to sell tennis lessons, to sell a sponsorship. You need to know what it's like on that front line. So, and there's, I think, a lot of opportunity for young women. We call it partnership marketing. I like to think of that as retention sales.
Okay.
Keeping our sponsors and upselling our sponsors. I'd rather double down on keeping a sponsor and growing from within than trying to get new ones. We have seen even in USTA, massively talented pool of women managing and retaining our long-term partners. And I think there's room in those areas. And then I think we should just be completely broad in all areas, whether that be finance, data analytics, legal. There's really no boundaries, in my opinion. If we look outside, we look at the banks, and we look at other financial institutions, the consulting firms, we are seeing much more gender diversity in those industries than in ours. So, one of the biases we have that we hire women based on potential. We hire women based on their competency today. We have a bias for whatever reason. We hire men based on their potential, and the combination of that unconscious bias and building confidence with women. There's a lot of studies that say the women will look at a job description. I don't have that experience. I'm not going to apply. Guys will look at that resume. They're in the same position. They don't have the experience as a woman, but they do apply. And for whatever reason, we have taught that as in our youth, and so building that confidence with women. You think about all of those experiences that we all have. There are thousands of talented individuals inside those industries that would serve us well. So I look at that. I look at consumer packaged goods. They train their employees incredibly well to be consumer centric, to be focused at selling. And the other area for us, I think, is retail, particularly direct to consumer in the digital world. We're in the transactional business. It's one court booking at a time. It's one lesson at a time.
That's right.
And it's direct, and it's an experience based. So yes, we need subject matter experts in the coaching areas, but to run the business, diversity of thought and experience from outside of tennis serves us well. Just looking at you. You're Exhibit A for that. And how lucky are we?
Our wonderful team here today. Stacey, can you talk a little bit about the history of women's leadership in tennis and how far do we have left to go?
So when we look at those courageous women, the next then would be Althea Gibson, breaking the mold and the stereotypes of white tennis. And then if we come into the modern era of Billie Jean King, the original nine just got inducted into the International Tennis Hall of Fame. It was phenomenal. A little long in coming, but it's there. Billie and a lot of class were working a long time on that. But really, they are the founders of women's pro tennis that we know today. It was their courage in 1970. They stood up to the establishment, to the Grand Slams. Judy Dalton lost her Slazenger sponsorship. They were going to be banned from playing events. And Gladys Hellman said to Billie, I'll find a sponsor. And Joe Coleman of Virginia Slims said, we will operate a women's only event in Houston for $5,000. And they had no idea what they were doing, but they all had to sign a contract. They would have $1, and they all stood up with that ever famous photo of the $1 bill. That was the birth of women's pro tennis as we know it today. And then in 1973, as Billie was winning Grand Slams, she formed the WTA. So Billie is winning Grand Slams and she forms the WTA with the dream that any girl anywhere in the world, if she wants to play pro tennis, she can. And it's been women athletes who have had that courage to stand up to the establishment. And our modern day Billie Jean King, Venus Williams, who helped ultimately get us across the line with equal prize money at Roland Garros and Wimbledon. And when you think about why we've been successful, it's been athlete driven, and we had Billie. So we're so lucky that she chose our sport. She could have played any. Number two, we had the risk takers. We had the sponsors who were willing, back in the 70s, to invest in women's tennis.
Stacey, thank you so much for joining us today and for all that you've done for tennis and particularly for women in tennis. We really appreciate you and we honor you during Women's History Month here in March.